The airport buzzed with the usual rush, rolling suitcases, murmured announcements, and tired passengers clutching coffee cups. But amid that hum of routine, tension began to coil near Gate 47B. Nia Harrington stood quietly in line, wearing a soft cream blazer and jeans, her boarding pass clutched in one hand and earbuds in the other. She wasn't trying to draw attention. But attention found her anyway. Her calm confidence, graceful yet understated, made her stand out. What most didn't know was that Nia was the daughter of Robert Harrington, one of America's most respected black entrepreneurs and philanthropists, CEO of Harrington Tech. To her, though, she was just Nia, a woman heading to Chicago to give a keynote speech at a youth summit on equal opportunity. The flight attendant at the gate, Clara Benson, wore the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. She'd been snapping at passengers for misplaced bags and overstuffed carry-ons, clearly running low on patience. But when her gaze fell on Nia, that irritation sharpened into something colder. "Ma'am," Clara said, her tone clipped. "You're in the wrong boarding group. Step aside." Nia frowned softly. "Oh, I'm sorry. My ticket says Group A." She held out her phone. Clara glanced at it and rolled her eyes. "That's priority access. You must have upgraded online by mistake. This line is for business class passengers." "I understand," Nia said calmly. "That's what I purchased." The murmur behind them grew as a few people started watching. Clara's expression hardened. "Ma'am, please don't make a scene. Step aside, or I'll have to call security." Nia exhaled, trying to stay poised. She'd been in enough rooms to know how quickly calm women of color were labeled aggressive, so she lowered her voice. "I'm not making a scene. I just want to board with my group." Clara suddenly reached out, too fast, too rough, and pushed Nia's arm aside, forcing her back a step. "You're holding up the line," she snapped. The movement wasn't violent enough to send her sprawling, but it was enough to make Nia stumble. Her bag slipped from her hand and hit the floor. The sound cracked through the crowd like a gunshot. For a heartbeat, silence. Then came the gasps. "Hey, you can't just push her," someone shouted. "Whoa, did she just—" Nia stood frozen, eyes wide but controlled. Inside, a wave of humiliation, disbelief and pain collided in her chest. She wanted to disappear, but she stood taller instead. "I need your name," Nia said, her voice steady now, trembling only at the edges. Clara's face flushed red. "You need to calm down before I have you escorted out." Before Nia could reply, a man stepped forward from the waiting area. Late 40s, silver suit, measured gaze. Marcus Delaney, a well-known corporate lawyer who recognized Nia immediately from a recent charity gala. "Miss Harrington," he said, just loud enough for others to hear. "Are you all right?" The crowd rippled with whispers. "Harrington? As in Harrington Tech?" Clara's smirk faltered. Marcus turned toward the attendant. "I saw what you did. You laid hands on a passenger who was calmly boarding in her assigned group. That's assault." Clara stammered. I didn't. She was blocking the line." The gate agent at the counter looked terrified now, unsure what to do as phones started recording. Nia swallowed hard, blinking back tears. "I just wanted to board quietly. That's all." Her voice cracked on the last word, and something about it, something quiet and wounded, made the entire crowd fall still. Within moments, a supervisor hurried over, flanked by security. Clara began to protest, her voice high and shaky, but the supervisor's tone was all business. "We'll handle this, Miss Benson. Please step aside." Passengers started clapping softly, not for drama, but for dignity. For Nia. As she walked toward the counter, the supervisor apologized profusely, ushering her through the gate first. But Nia's steps were heavy. Every camera lens, every whispered "that's her," felt like another weight pressing down. On the plane, she sat by the window, trying to steady her breathing. She replayed the moment, the push, the humiliation, the disbelief that even in an airport, with all her achievements, this could still happen. Her phone buzzed. It was her father. "Dad, boarding yet, sweetheart?" "Nia, yeah. Something happened, but I'll explain later." "Dad, you okay?" "Nia, I will be—" When the plane finally began taxiing, Nia's eyes drifted to the horizon beyond the runway lights. She didn't know that footage of her at the gate, tearful but composed, was already spreading across social media. Hashtags were forming, comment sections were flooding with outrage, and before the flight would even land, the world would know her name. By the time Flight 2837 touched down in Chicago, the world had already changed for Nia Harrington. Her phone buzzed endlessly the moment the plane wheels hit the runway. Notifications, calls, messages. It was chaos contained in a single rectangle of glass. She blinked at the screen, confused at first, then stunned by what she saw. The headline on one post read, "Flight attendant pushes passenger. Turns out she's the daughter of tech tycoon Robert Harrington." The video was everywhere. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Thousands of comments poured in, dissecting every second of the incident. She handled that with such grace. I'd have lost it. How's this still happening in 2025? The airline better lawyer up. Is that Nia Harrington? The girl who spoke at the youth summit? Her name was trending worldwide. Nia scrolled numbly, her throat tight. The video showed her clearly, calm, poised, her eyes filled with quiet pain as she stood after being shoved. Someone had zoomed in on the moment her bag hit the floor. Another clip showed her trembling hand reaching for it, refusing to let anger win. Behind her seat, she overheard a whisper. That's her. The girl from the video. She closed her eyes. She could feel the gaze of strangers now, even from across the aisle. The man next to her offered a sympathetic look. You handled that like a queen, he murmured softly. She forced a faint smile, but inside, she felt raw and exposed. What should have been a humiliating moment between two people had turned into a global spectacle. When she finally exited the plane, cameras were already waiting beyond the security gate. Reporters shouted her name. "Miss Harrington, can you comment on the incident? Do you plan to sue?" She didn't answer. She just kept walking, head high, even as flashes blinded her eyes. She met her father's driver outside the terminal, a tall man in a suit named Reggie, who looked visibly shaken. "Miss Nia," he said softly, opening the car door. "Your father's already seen it." Nia hesitated before getting in. "How bad is it?" Reggie sighed. "It's everywhere. Mr. Harrington's at a press conference right now. He said he'd address it soon." The ride through Chicago's city streets felt longer than any flight. Her father, Robert Harrington, had built his empire on discipline and dignity. He rarely reacted emotionally, but when she entered their downtown penthouse, he was pacing by the window, his expression unreadable. "Nia." His voice was calm, but the storm behind it was unmistakable. "You okay?" She nodded, her eyes glassy. "I'm fine, Dad. It was just humiliating." He clenched his jaw. "No, it wasn't just humiliating, it was wrong. And the way that woman looked at you." He stopped himself, inhaling deeply. "The world saw everything. You didn't need to fight. You already won by staying calm." Tears slipped from her eyes despite her effort to hold them back. "I didn't want to become a symbol," she whispered. "I just wanted to fly." Robert walked over and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Sometimes we don't choose the moments that define us. They choose us." Across town, in a sterile office building lined with airline posters, chaos reigned. Clara Benson sat at a conference table surrounded by stern executives and a corporate lawyer. Her uniform was wrinkled, her hands trembling. I didn't mean to push her," she stammered. She was blocking the line. A manager interrupted sharply. "Miss Benson, the footage clearly shows physical contact. The passenger was calm. You were not." "She was recording me," Clara blurted out. "She wasn't," the lawyer said coldly. "Other passengers were." The airline's PR director rubbed his temples. "This has already gone viral. We're being called racist, abusive, elitist, everything. Our stock's down 3 points since the clip hit CNN." Clara looked horrified. "You can't fire me over one mistake." The PR director turned his gaze on her, tired but firm. "It's not just one mistake. It's an image issue. The world doesn't care about your side right now. They care about her." That night, Nia sat in her room scrolling through messages. Strangers wrote from around the world, some offering love, others venting anger on her behalf. "You showed strength. You inspired my daughter. I cried watching you stand there with dignity." Her best friend Alina called. "Girl, you don't understand. You're trending everywhere. Hashtags like #StandWithNia, #FlyingWhileBlack, even #GracingChaos. People are calling for the airline to be boycotted." Nia sighed. "I didn't want all this, Alina. I just wanted to get home." Alina's voice softened. "You might not have wanted it, but maybe the world needed it." Downstairs, Robert watched the news silently, as an anchor's voice filled the room. In breaking news, the airline has issued an official apology after a viral incident involving the daughter of tech mogul Robert Harrington. Sources confirm the flight attendant involved has been suspended pending investigation. Robert's jaw tightened. He turned off the TV and whispered to himself, "They'll learn today that money isn't power, character is." As midnight rolled in, Nia sat on her balcony overlooking the glowing skyline. She thought of all the faces she'd seen that day, some kind, some cruel, some indifferent. She whispered softly to the night air, "If only they knew, I don't want revenge, I just want respect." The wind carried her words into the dark, unaware that her quiet wish would soon ignite a national reckoning, one that would shake not only an airline but an entire industry built on image rather than empathy. And somewhere deep inside, Nia Harrington began to realize that this was no longer about a flight. It was about flight itself, the right to rise, to be seen, and to stand tall even when pushed down. The next morning, America woke up angry. News anchors dissected the footage on every major channel. Hashtags dominated the internet, and people flooded the airline's social media pages with outrage. A "Justice for Nia" trended worldwide, alongside clips of her calm face as she picked up her fallen bag. The image of quiet strength had become a symbol, a mirror reflecting the silent humiliation many had endured but never caught on camera. At Harrington Tower, the family's headquarters in downtown Chicago, the tension was electric. Dozens of reporters crowded the plaza below, cameras ready, waiting for Robert Harrington to make a statement. Inside the 48th floor boardroom, executives from the family's PR and legal teams debated what to do. "Robert, if you go public, it'll escalate this beyond the airline," one advisor warned. "It could affect your partnerships." Robert stood by the window, arms folded, staring out over the skyline. "If silence protects business more than it protects dignity, then maybe we're in the wrong business." He turned to his assistant. "Set up the press conference for noon." Meanwhile, Nia sat alone in the corner of her father's office, scrolling through more videos. Her face had become 1,000 people's profile picture. Artists were sketching portraits of her. A teacher in Atlanta had posted a clip showing students discussing the incident as part of a lesson on modern prejudice. But the attention didn't feel like justice. It felt heavy. She whispered under her breath, "They don't even know me. They just know what happened to me." Her father placed a hand on her shoulder. "That's true. But how you respond now, that's what they'll remember." Back at the airline's headquarters, executives scrambled like ants in a storm. The CEO, a sharp-tongued woman named Evelyn Morse, was furious. "How in God's name did this get so far so fast?" she snapped. "Has anyone spoken to the Harringtons?" Her deputy, pale and sweating, cleared his throat. "We tried to reach Mr. Harrington's legal office. They're not responding. They're probably preparing a statement." Evelyn slammed her pen down. "Then we need to move first. Damage control, announce an internal investigation, full apology, compensation, whatever it takes." The PR director hesitated. "Ma'am, the issue isn't the policy, it's perception. People don't believe this was a one-off mistake. They think it represents us." Evelyn sighed, rubbing her temples. "Then we changed the perception." Down in the public relations office, Clara Benson sat hunched over her phone, reading hate messages that burned through her conscience like acid. "You're disgusting. You pushed her because of her skin, didn't you? You're done," she whispered to herself. It wasn't like that. It wasn't. But the words sounded hollow even to her. She replayed the moment over and over, the way she'd lost patience, the way Nia had looked at her, not with rage but with hurt. That expression haunted her. At exactly noon, Robert Harrington stood before a sea of reporters. The lights, the flashes, the silence, it all felt surreal. Nia sat just behind him, composed, though her heart raced. "My daughter, Nia," Robert began, voice low and steady, didn't ask for attention. She didn't stage an event. She didn't raise her voice, even when she was pushed, literally and figuratively, down. He paused, eyes narrowing slightly. "But what happened to her represents something larger than one incident. It's about the quiet ways people are told they don't belong, even when they've done everything right." The room was dead silent. He continued, "We've been told the airline issued an apology. I appreciate that. But apologies without accountability are like promises made in the dark. They fade when the light comes on. My family isn't interested in revenge. We're interested in reform." A reporter raised her hand. "Mr. Harrington, do you intend to sue the airline?" Robert smiled faintly. "We intend to talk, but make no mistake, we'll be heard." The clip of his speech spread instantly, sparking debate across the nation. Politicians weighed in, civil rights groups offered support, even celebrities posted messages of solidarity. The airline's shares plummeted overnight, and analysts called it the most costly customer service mistake in history. That evening, Nia sat on the balcony again, watching the city glow beneath her feet. Her phone buzzed non-stop, but she ignored it, staring instead at the clouds rolling over the skyline. For the first time, she felt the weight of what this had become, how a few seconds of injustice had ignited a fire across an entire country. She thought of Clara, the woman who had pushed her. Did she hate her? No. She felt pity. Somewhere deep down, she believed Clara's cruelty came from fear, a fear of being small, unseen, or powerless in a world that judged everyone. When her father joined her on the balcony, she finally spoke. "Dad, I don't want her fired." Robert looked at her, surprised. "After what she did?" Nia nodded. "Yes. Let the world see grace where it expects bitterness. Maybe that's how real change starts." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You have your mother's heart," he murmured. Far below, the streets buzzed with chants and camera lights. A crowd had gathered outside their building holding signs: respect, dignity, equality. As Nia watched from above, she realized this wasn't about her anymore. It was about every person who had ever been told to step aside. The irony struck her. She'd been pushed down at the boarding gate, but somehow she'd ended up helping an entire country rise. Days turned into weeks, yet the fire refused to die down. The airline faced lawsuits, boycotts, and endless bad press. Corporate sponsors quietly withdrew, and talk show hosts tore into the company's culture of selective courtesy. News outlets called it the Gate 47 incident. But while the public demanded blood, Nia Harrington sought something else: healing. It was a crisp morning when Nia received an unexpected email from the airline's legal department. It wasn't a press release or a demand letter, it was a request. Clara Benson, the flight attendant, wanted to meet her privately. Her father objected immediately. "Nia, that woman humiliated you in front of the world. You don't owe her a second of your time." "I'm not doing it for her," Nia said softly. "I'm doing it for me." A week later, in a quiet conference room at a Chicago hotel, Nia walked in wearing a simple white blouse, her hair tied back. No cameras, no entourage. Across the table sat Clara, her once sharp posture now small, almost fragile. Her eyes were swollen, her hands trembling as she tried to find words. "Nia," she began, her voice cracking. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say I'm sorry." Nia studied her silently. The woman before her wasn't the arrogant attendant from that day. She looked broken, hollowed out by guilt and public shame. Clara continued, "I've worked for that airline for 12 years. I thought I was being firm, professional. But when I saw the video, when I saw your face, I realized I wasn't protecting order. I was protecting my pride, and it cost me everything." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "People send me death threats. My daughter, she can't even go to school without being called racist. I know I deserve the hate, but I wanted you to know I never hated you. I just didn't see you. And that's my sin." For a long time, the room was silent except for the ticking of the wall clock. Nia's heart twisted, not with anger, but with something deeper. She thought of the thousands of strangers still raging online, calling for Clara's life to be destroyed, and wondered if that was really justice. Finally, she spoke. "Clara, I can't erase what happened. I can't make millions forget your face or my tears, but I can choose what happens next. And I choose to forgive you." Clara looked up, startled. "You, what?" "I forgive you," Nia repeated, her voice steady. "Not because you deserve it, but because I refuse to carry your hate any longer." Clara broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. Nia reached across the table and placed a hand over hers. For the first time, Clara looked at her, not as a threat or symbol, but as a human being. When the meeting ended, Nia stepped outside into the sunlight. Reporters waited across the street, shouting her name, but she said nothing. She didn't need to. That quiet exchange inside that small room was louder than any press statement ever could be. Later that evening, during an exclusive televised interview, Nia finally spoke publicly about the meeting. The world watched as she looked straight into the camera, calm and composed. "I met the woman who pushed me," she said softly, "and I forgave her, not because what she did was okay, but because forgiveness doesn't excuse the act. it ends the power it has over you. The interviewer blinked, stunned. So you don't want her punished? Nia shook her head. She's already being punished. But maybe now we can start something better. I don't want people fired. I want people taught. The following week, the airline, under immense public and moral pressure, announced a new initiative, the Harrington Compassion Program, a nationwide diversity and empathy training curriculum created in collaboration with Nia and her father's foundation. Clara Benson, reinstated under probation, became one of its first instructors, sharing her own story as a cautionary tale about prejudice and pride. Within months, the airline's reputation began to recover, but something more important happened. Its people changed. Gate agents smiled more, listened more, saw more. On the one-year anniversary of the incident, Nia stood again at Gate 47B, not as a passenger, but as a keynote speaker for the launch of the program. Cameras rolled, not to catch humiliation but hope. She took the microphone and looked out at the crowd of employees and travelers. 1 year ago, I was pushed down right here. Today, I stand here not as a victim, but as proof that dignity can rise even from pain. The world watched me fall. I'm grateful they're watching me stand. The audience erupted into applause. Even Clara, standing quietly in the back, wiped her eyes. As Nia stepped away from the podium, she whispered to herself, "Grace isn't weakness, it's strength in slow motion." Her father joined her, pride shining in his eyes. "You've changed more than an airline, Nia. You've changed hearts." She smiled faintly. "Maybe that's what real power is, Dad. Not what we build, but what we heal." Outside the terminal, planes ascended one after another, cutting through the clouds like promises kept. And as the sunlight poured through the glass walls of Gate 47B, it no longer felt like a place of humiliation. It felt like a place of rebirth.